besties, welcome to or welcome back to my channel. If you guys are seeing my face for the first time, hi, my name is Maya and I like to talk about books here on the internet. You guys saw the thumbnail and the title, y'all know what's up. We're in a new month, so it's about time I wrapped up last month. Let's get into the books. First off, I picked up The Tea Dragon Society by Katie O'Neill. This was a reread. It was before predicted as a 5-star, and it still remains a 5-star because it's just lovely, amazing, and beautiful. And we are following along our girl here, our main girl, Greta, and she is learning blacksmithing from her mother. And one day, she's just like out and about doing some errands, and she hears a distress noise. So of course she goes to investigate, and she finds like this pack of I believe wild dogs or something like that, or like not pet dogs, surrounding this poor little creature, and they're hungry. So she gives them some meat to eat and picks up the little tea dragon and goes to her house to help patch it up a little bit because it did get a little bit of an owie there. And so she's patching up the dragon, and her father comes in and he's like, I know that dragon. I also know the owner of said tea dragon. And she's like, okay, cool. So she goes to give back the dragon to her owner. Obviously, the dragon's name is Jasmine. So she goes to give Jasmine back to her owner. Hesekiel, I believe is how we pronounce it. And Hesekiel. And he offers a chance to learn about tea dragons, which is a lost art, much like blacksmithing is a lost art as well. So she's learning from two of the best in fields of dying arts. So she goes back to Hesekiel, his house. She then gets introduced to Eric, who also is helping with these little tea dragons, and she also comes across Minette, our girl here, and they develop a friendship, and very soon she learns how to care for these dragons and also gets to see their power of the tea and how that manifests. And she gets to learn a little bit more of the past of the people that she is working with, and they start to develop their own society again. I mean, the Tea Dragon Society was a society already, but then everyone kind of vanished. They either passed on or were too old to take care of the dragons, and now a new generation has to rise up and care for them, and they are, and so they're developing their little society again, and it's so cute. So 5-star for sure. And then I also read the Tea Dragon Festival, which is a prelude to the Tea Dragon Society, and we actually get some very familiar characters in this book. That's about as much as I can really say. Well, we kind of understand a little bit more about the history of two of the characters that we meet, Hesekiel and Eric. We kind of get their backstory a little bit, but then we also get newer characters, and those are the characters we focus on. It's like the side quest is learning the past of the two that we already know about, where we are following along our main girl as she is helping to get ingredients for the villagers to get ready for a festival. And she comes across this like abandoned location, and in this abandoned location there resides a dragon who is sleeping, like a legit dragon that is sleeping, not the tea dragons, a legit, I mean they're legit dragons too, but like, you know what I mean, the bigger dragons that like actually like fly and they breathe fire and all of these things. Well, I don't know if they breathe fire actually, I'm not sure. This dragon has been asleep for a very long time and he didn't know. And so he wakes up and he asks, is the festival going on? And she's like, yeah, it's a couple weeks away and everything. And he's just like, okay, I just wanted to make sure that this was the festival of blah, blah, blah. I'm so sorry, a certain type of, I think, root or something? I'm not entirely sure, or like a certain type of festival, but it wasn't the festival that they were celebrating. And he was just like, that's not possible. It was like 2 weeks away. I fell asleep and now I woke up. It can't be that long, and realized like, oh, I have been asleep for generations, and they are trying to find out why. And along the way he is living with these people, with these villagers, that he was supposed to protect and take care of this entire time, but he's been asleep. And so the dragon is just trying to find out, like, okay, what is going on, what happened to me, and everything like that. And amidst all of that, the side quest piece is we get to see Hezekiel again, and also Eric, and kind of see them in their younger years, prior to the events that happened with leaving with the Tea Dragon Society that we learn in their memories through the tea leaves. It's a whole thing. You have to read it to kind of understand what I'm saying, because I'm not explaining it well, I don't think. Yeah, I read this. This was a 5-star. So cute. So cute. And both of these books are a part of a series. There is a third, so I am going to be getting that as quickly as possible. And then last but certainly not least, I did actually read a bigger, chunkier book, and that was The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. I had some thoughts. Hi besties. I just made a TikTok about like what I'm currently reading. The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. You guys, I read the back of the book for the summary, and my first initial reaction was Stockholm Syndrome. I read it up through the first chapter and immediately was like, I was correct in Stockholm Syndrome. And then I am currently on page 78, and I am like, oh, this is Stockholm Syndrome on another level. What is this book? Also, why is this YA? Back in my day, I felt like these themes weren't touched with the 10-foot pole. I didn't really have all of these darker themes. That's all I got. What is this book? Like, actually, what is this book? So last I talked to you guys, I think I was on page 78, and I was talking about Stockholm Syndrome, kind of my view of that in this book so far. Because that was the only darker, elemental thing that I was not used to seeing in a book. There were certain types of YA dark themes that were discussed, but none like that. I think it goes even further than that, because now I am on page 108, and we have even further just darker elements, and I'm gonna say them because I don't think that they're spoilers, but humiliation and degradation are involved. And it is very apparent, but not outright spoken. What I love about this author is that I think she holds our hand in all of this, but also remembering this is marketed to YA, so the writing is going to be a little bit more hold your handy. But she holds our hand just enough to let you know what is going on and what is really happening here, but also allows you to make your own opinions about the topic based on the characters and how they act and react and respond. And I am kind of here for it, and I think it's handled very well. And I think that this is a very interesting read for that reason, and so I'm very intrigued to move forward with this. This is very fast paced, so I'm hoping to read a little bit more tonight and give you guys my thoughts further along. But yeah, really, really good. I have high hopes for this book. You guys, we need to talk about this book. I have been struggling with this book and its existence. I don't think I conveyed how odd I found it that a book for YA marketing had an element of Stockholm Syndrome in the book. I felt weird about it at first, and then as I started to think more on it, I was just like, why are we here with this book? Because there are certain conversations with certain darker themes and darker elements that, yes, can be profitable for the right age and target audience. I'm sorry, YA encompasses a pretty big age range. Typically, we see 13 to 18. So just going based off of that, Stockholm Syndrome, humiliation, degradation, quite blatant and obvious. There are all of those underlying factors, which when you look at them surface level is very like, okay, I can appreciate that these themes are brought up. I can appreciate how they're handled. I can appreciate how it is written so that, you know, it is blatantly obvious that it is not glorified. It is not praised. It is not seen in a good light. And then I remember the age range that we are promoting this book to. I just have a hard time because I feel like there are certain conversations, at least back in my day, that were adult-only conversations and then child-friendly conversations. You know what I'm saying? When we think about children, we tend to infantilize, but really it's just a experience level that hasn't been reached yet because you didn't have the amount of time that others have had to experience everything that there is to experience. And trust me, you don't want to experience everything, okay? And especially when it comes to themes that are in this book, okay? You don't want to experience that ever, okay? I thankfully have never had experiences with this, but I can't say the same for others, or I can't say that this can't trigger thought processes that get people to think, oh, I know someone like this, or oh, I am this person. And that is a hard conversation to get into, a hard thing to think about, a hard pill to swallow, but we kind of have to swallow it when we're talking about the fact that these books do indeed exist. And I'm saying these books because I'm assuming the next couple books in the series might still touch on the themes that are in this book because it's so blatantly obvious. It is such a part of the world. What then is the follow-up question for me then is, maybe then should this have been written to and given towards older audiences? Because I believe that there is some validity in the fact that there are adult-only conversations, adult-only rights, versus child-friendly conversations, or rather, to make it sound better, age-appropriate conversations. The problem with it being marketed towards YA audiences is that, while yes, older teens are more than likely to be attracted to these books. It's proven, marketably. But here's the thing. This is marketed as YA. So the problem then becomes younger readers who read at a higher level and want to ingest stuff of a higher caliber, and they are out there. I was one of them, okay? Which is why this is an important conversation to me. I never had a book like this when I was reading up. Now, granted, maybe I wasn't in those circles, but, you know, I made the joke of like, I read Nancy Drew, I read the Treehouse series. I blew through that when I was 3, okay? I'm talking now when I was like 12, 13, I was reading like adult classics. I was probably reading dystopian a lot, you know, just a lot of fantasy, a lot of sci-fi, and I was really involved in that world. And back then, we didn't really have the separation of YA and adult. There was just a knowledge of, okay, if you read this author, you're pretty much guaranteed to get this level of conversation. It's typically for this age or that age or whatever. Now we actually have that category split, which I think is great, which I think this could be an adult book because of the darker themes, because again, I think it's a good conversation. I do think that, you know, if you are an older teen, having a knowledge that this exists in the world, and unfortunately, sadly, probably things like that do exist in that age range, then, you know, it is a helpful conversation to have. I don't, however, think it needs to be marketed so that the younger side of the age range that it is marketed towards, or readers who are even younger, again, because they read up, can think to, I don't know, pick up something with this level of bluntness about the thing. And maybe I just think it's blunt because I am older and I just, you know, when I see certain things, it's just like, yep, that with themes. Whereas when you're younger, and I can even admit when I was younger, I just was like, oh, interesting story, that's bad, that's good. And that's kind of where my thoughts just ended. So maybe there's safety in that. However, I don't know, there's just, I like to give younger age ranges more credit than that. They have very good comprehension skills. They're sponges. They are learning things. They are watching. They are learning. They are growing their worldviews and their perspectives. And again, this doesn't glorify, this doesn't praise, but this is a hard thing to talk about when you actually look into Stockholm Syndrome, humiliation, degradation, everything that goes along with it. Sure, there are areas where people have found to maybe, I don't know, in certain ways, make it safe to kind of live out whatever scenarios in a controlled environment of their making. However, there are environments that are not controlled or are not in people's making, and this is one of them. And I just feel like it's a lot to just read, and it's shocking at how just like blatant it is and how just in your face. And I don't know if this is something that I would want to see for myself at that age range, because who knows how I would have taken it. I don't think it's a bad conversation to have. I just think it can be hard. It can be hard to talk about. I don't know. There's just a lot of risks when you open the doors for conversation, which is why we all know that age-appropriate types of conversations do exist, things like that. And I'm not saying that the age range that it is marketed to is too young to handle it, because again, I think it would be older teens that would read this book, but that doesn't stop younger teens. That doesn't stop younger than that, even kids, to pick up this book and read it. They might not grasp how much weight is in that conversation, but then again, they could. And it feels interesting to see a book like this out in the world in that way for that age range. And maybe this is just like my age showing, and you know, because I did say like back in the day I did not have this. Well, back in the day we also didn't talk about mental health, so I want to be open about my thoughts on that, because I think it could start a conversation, a respectful conversation of, is this something that should be out there in that age range to be talked about and to be shown so brazenly? Is that going to be harmful? Is that going to be helpful? Is that going to be just like down the middle of the line and I'm just thinking too far into that? I don't know. I mean, I want to start the conversation because I think it's a good conversation to have, and I do think that we can have a respectful discourse about it and share our thoughts and opinions. And so I'm creating this video to kind of open that door for the conversation and just see, like, you know, what do we all think about it? My initial reaction was like, oh, this is Stockholm Syndrome. Like, within the TikToks I tell you, like, I read the back of the book, I thought Stockholm Syndrome. I read the prologue, Stockholm Syndrome. I kept reading a few more chapters in, and I'm just like, oh yeah, definitely Stockholm Syndrome. And so then we read further on, and I know that this was all in the clips, but I'm just kind of reiterating here. And then we moved further on, and then there were other themes that happened. I was like, okay, this is getting weird. This is getting a little much. I don't know how I feel about this type of conversation in the market that it was directed towards, and I'm going to get to that in a second. And then moved further on in the book, and it almost felt like it was kind of explaining it to make it sound logical. And while, yes, there are things that happen where it's not a good situation, and usually the victims of the situation don't see it for what it is and don't think that it is bad until they get out of it, and kind of word things in a way that justify the people that are doing the thing to them, which is what it feels like is happening. I don't necessarily know if I would want that type of conversation and that look for a book at that age. And I kind of mentioned age-appropriate conversations when it comes to certain things. But then it kind of does open the door of like, okay, if you're doing it with that, then do it with all of these other books as well. And I don't know. I'm starting to get a correlation of something in my head, and I'm gonna try and articulate it here because this goes into my ratings, by the way. This is why I'm building up the context for this book. I think personally that I am taking a massive emotional stance on books like this because of my stance on The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and how like there are certain things that I know if I read and it gives me context, immediately just like the context softens whatever is happening as kind of like a justification. The explanation of something can sometimes soften things a little bit more because now you understand where it's coming from. It's twisted and it's manipulative and it's toxic, but you start to understand it. I don't want to understand the logic behind the toxicity for certain things, because certain things flat out, I just don't want to have that. And while it's not something that softens to change your mind, it just, from a human wanting to understand perspective, there's just something about it that, just for me personally, kind of softens things. And I don't want things that are that clear-cut, hard-edged to be softened. It needs to remain a jagged edge that I just want to stay the heck away from, you know? So that is what I was experiencing with this book. And I say all of that to say because we are following along a teenager named Jude who, when she was very young, not even in double digits, she was like a child. When she was a child, she watched her parents die in front of her eyes. Not just die, they got murdered. That is not a spoiler. That is literally the prologue. So her parents are murdered in front of her, and her murderer is the man who fathered her older sister, who we do get a clear depiction of. She does look different than the other two. She is a hybrid of some kind. And so you kind of understand that. And she acknowledges that. She's aware of that. But she doesn't let it jade her. She doesn't let it, like, she doesn't think anything of it. All she thinks is, that is my cool older sister. That's all she thinks. And so she watches her parents die in front of her. She gets kidnapped and taken to a land that she does not know, a land that hates humans and is thoroughly like this word all the time. And now, 10 years later, a decade later, she wants to be a part of that world. She knows it's messed up, but she wants to be a part of it anyway, because at least then she won't get all of the pain, all of the hurt, all of the everything that was done to her. And it's like, oh, this is a twisted, messed up, okay, yeah. You know, it's one thing to read the back of the book and think mildly, this sounds like Stockholm Syndrome. But to read it is a whole different experience entirely. And complementary to the author and to the writing style, she does not hold back. Like, she puts you in it. And she goes through all of the emotions and all of the things. She does not hold back. Now, let me tell you what this is marketed towards. YA. And I did my research, and I know that the YA genre is marketed to, drum roll please, ladies and gentlemen, 12 to 18-year-olds. 12 to 18. Now, an argument could be made, or no, not even an argument. A discussion point can be made that, you know, there are certain things that you can read and logically you know it's wrong. And that's kind of the message that you just need to get at that point. You know that something is wrong. You don't know maybe you don't know the actual technical term. Maybe you don't know all of exactly what that entails, but you know that it's wrong. And then there's the older that you get, the more you see the realness of it. And so for some ages, it goes like this. Like for certain cartoons, like we've all had that cartoon or movie that for the kids, it's just a fun, entertaining time. For the adults, they are more invested than they probably would be, because there are like aged up comments and innuendos, or like certain references that adults would get. So one can make that discussion point then that, you know, yes, there is that in here, but it can do this in an age-appropriate fashion while still maintaining that it is bad and not glorifying. And I do appreciate the author for not glorifying any of these darker themes. Not that I think anyone necessarily would, but, you know, never say never. There is that always outlier exception, and I don't know, like, could you make an excuse for that to exist? I don't know. That's a whole entire different conversation. My thing is that it's kind of apparent. Like, even though me as an adult can come to this book and say, Stockholm Syndrome, humiliation, degradation, could have a parallel conversation about racism. A younger person will come to it, see certain bad things, and say, that is bad, we should never do that. Older conversations will get into the thick of it and the weeds and the definitions and the technicalities and all of that, right? So is that then okay to have stuff like this so blatant and obvious and in your face? I mean, it exists and it's a thing and it's here, so, you know, can't undo it. Not that I'm saying we should. I'm just saying I was so just caught off guard by how blatant, how in your face, how much this runs rampant in just general fiction, YA, all the genres underneath YA. And that got me thinking about other books that I've read, because I have read a series of unfortunate events. And within the series of unfortunate events, there is literal horrible things that I don't even feel comfortable reading. And I read this, I think, when I was, when did I first start? 2018. I was 18. I was technically a legal adult. I don't know why I put quotes on that. I was a legal adult, but, you know, adult. And I read that and I was like, listen, there are some things that can be written like this, but there are some things that, I mean, just, you know, the very mention, the very idea, child-friendly conversations, please. And, you know, so that's kind of a thing that I'm thinking of now. It's like, what are age-appropriate conversations? Because there are, in some capacity. Let's be real, in some capacity, there is something inherent in many of us that want to protect each age range from the older experiences, or experiences that you get the longer that you live, because it's like, in a way, it's jaded. There's a lot of life that starts to jade you, that starts to weigh on you and be heavy. You know, there's a reason we build spaces and communities and, you know, niches around things that we enjoy, things that are childish, you know? Like, coloring is not childish. Hello, I love coloring. I think it's a great thing. It's a relaxing time. It's a de-stress, decompress type of moment. I will forever defend childish activities. Why? Because activities shouldn't be limited. Well, okay, let me not say that. There are certain activities that should be limited to age. For the general population consumeristic hobbies, video games, coloring, crocheting and knitting. What else? Fun little projects and poster boards and vision boards, like actual, like not on the computer boards where you get a thinking, what's it called? Where you get like poster board, and you get Crayola markers, and you just go to town with it and have some fun drawing whatever it is that you want to draw. Have no expectations, no grades, no nothing. Just a fun time. I think that there are spaces for that, but we have that and we call it like healing our inner child for certain things or certain experiences, right? It's not limited to just hobbies, but there are also certain experiences that sometimes people label childish, that it's just that some people say is healing our inner child. And I'm using this as quotes because there are quotes that we use. There is a reason. We want some of that energy. We want some of that youth. We want some of that innocence to play a part in life because, you know, we did grow up. Stuff happens. Life happens. And it's not always fun and enjoyable or pretty. Sometimes it jades us. And yeah, we want to protect that. So this conversation isn't just like a bashing of a book, okay? It's not that. It's literally just an opening of a door of conversation to say, like, what's going on? Like, do we, like, and it's also, it's not a policing thing. It's not, okay? And I highly doubt that 12-year-olds are picking up this book. But again, there could be. And people read up in ages. So, you know, there are certain things and certain themes where it's just like, eee. And it's worth discussing. Like, should we have it in these spaces? Is it productive and helpful, or could it be harmful? It is just, I do think it is worth it though to talk about, okay, this is the age range we're marketing towards. Are we feeling okay if this particular age is reading that? And am I okay to say that younger readers reading this is something that I would want? Honestly, I don't know. Because it's so, where I'm at currently in my reading life and my analytical life, it's very raw for me where I am at life and in my healing process for certain things, to where when I see certain topics of discussion within books, I am acutely aware of these. But I also know that other people may not be. And also because of the stage and age of life, they may not think that way for many years. So is that then a me issue? A discussion point? Or just irrelevant? You know? I mean, to be honest, in my opinion, I do think it's a relevant thing to bring these discussions up and genuinely ask questions. This is me genuinely just like wondering, would I put this in the hands of my 13, 12, 14-year-old self? Would I do that? And would I be affected by it in any way? Because there is a level of protection that I put for younger readers, for middle grade, for children's books. Are we past the point of protection for teens and older teens? Or should there be protection there? Should there be trigger warnings? Should there be, you know, some level of okay, be aware of what this is going into? Should there not be? Would that be a thing that should exist? I don't know. Again, all of these are just questions. I am genuinely just being curious. This is not me, oh, we should ban all of this, or oh, we should police this. No, 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 no. That would be a wrong move, okay? I genuinely think that is a wrong move. But it does show where I'm at in my head and what journey this book took me on. I am here, listen, between you and me, I'm here to be honest about my reading experience. My reading experience with this book kind of took me on a roller coaster of discussion points for entirely different reasons. That was my experience. And therefore, because of that experience, 3.5. But yeah, folks, we'll just put a wrap on the monthly wrap up. I am posting on Saturdays this month for Escape the Readathon. I almost said Ramathon. Ramathon is past. For Escape the Readathon, and yeah, I will leave all of the videos and announcements and all of the things in the description box down below, so go check that out. Go follow some people and subscribe to them, leave likes on their videos. I mean, they're just amazing people and creators, and like their content is great, so definitely go check that out. And I will also be leaving my socials, my lifestyle channel, my Bookstagram, my Instagram, my TikTok that is becoming a book talk more and more by the day. And I think that is everything. So thank you guys so much for watching and for taking the time out of your day. And thank you guys for being the most bookish besties that ever was, is, or ever will be. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.